All right, so hello. Today we're going to be talking about Qualtrics. This is Aubrey from the ASU SAM Lab. I am a SAM Lab consultant. So if you have any questions after this, please go ahead and ask them if you are currently here. But if you are watching this recorded, go ahead and email us at samlabasu@gmail.com if you end up having any questions. We also have a PowerPoint to go along with this, but I'm not actually going to be using it in today's webinar, but it does follow along with the order that I'm going to be saying things. So if you need that, feel free to send that email to the SAM Lab asking for it, and we can definitely get you that PowerPoint to make it easier to follow along. So today we're going to be going over basic information about Qualtrics, what it is and why we should use it, how to sign up with Qualtrics and create new studies, how to navigate Qualtrics. We'll discuss survey blocks and questions, distribution, like how to get your survey out to other people, how to link it to SONA, which is a research platform that we use here at ASU. I'm going to go over how to view and explore data, and then how to download a data table. If you are following along on the slides, you'll see that there's a slide that's titled Basic Information for ASU Qualtrics. You can read through that on your own time. I'm not going to read it. All right, so let's get started. What is Qualtrics? Well, Qualtrics is a survey program, and it allows you to collect information from participants. It links with SONA, MTurk, Prolific, and other survey distribution websites. Qualtrics also has great tech support. So now I'm going to share my screen so we can go ahead and actually look at the platform itself. Okay, so when you are going to Qualtrics for the first time, I would recommend going to Google, and you Google ASU Qualtrics because it's much easier to sign in that way. If you go directly to Qualtrics, the process is a lot more difficult. So just go to ASU Qualtrics in Google, click on ASU Qualtrics. It'll redirect you to this sign-in screen, and you sign in using your ASU Write ID and your password. Okay, so once you sign in, you'll see this dashboard. And there are numerous things that you can do from the dashboard. You can create a new project, like you can see on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. You can view all of your projects by clicking this button, which I'll do in a minute. You can see your recently visited studies, which are on the left side of your screen. And then if you click these three lines in the upper left-hand corner, which is the main menu, you'll see that you can go to many other places. So if you click this projects button, it's the same as if you click see all projects. So that'll take you to your projects list, okay? And like I just showed you, there's a way down here to create a new project on your dashboard, but you can also create a new project through that project page that we just went to. On the upper right-hand side, it says create project. So you just click that. And I forgot to mention that when we're in the project list, you can use it to edit your projects or create new projects. And we'll discuss a little more about collaborating, renaming, etc. That'll come later on. So let's go ahead and create a project from scratch. Okay, so from here, we're going to, like I said, create a project from scratch, and our project's going to be a survey. You'll see this on the right-hand side where it's telling you that you're going to be building a survey from scratch. And so go to the bottom on the right-hand side of the screen and you click Get Started. You can name your project. So for today, we're going to call it SAM Lab Webinar. You can choose which folder. If you have different folders for your surveys, you can choose which folder to put it in. So if it's a SONA quiz, for example, or your survey for your thesis, you can organize it accordingly. We are going to be creating a blank project, but you can also import a file that you already had. You can copy a survey from an existing project, or you can use a survey from your library. So let's go ahead and create this project. Which apparently wants to take a little while. Okay, so once you create your project, it'll redirect you to the actual survey that you're going to be making. So I mentioned blocks earlier. So this is a block where it says default question block, where the blue line is surrounding, that is a block. Each block, I usually use each block to contain my one measure. So that will show up on a separate page for once you come up with your survey. So like I said, I like to use this for one particular measure and separate each measure in different blocks. So for our case, we'll have SAM Lab questionnaire. So that's what we're titling our block. We can also give our questions a title. They are defaulted by Q1, Q2, Q3, etc. But I prefer to actually name them. And the reason is because if you name them, it makes data cleaning much easier. So we'll call this SAM1. I usually just shorten the measure title and label the questions 1, 2, 3, etc. So to edit the question itself, you click where it says click to write question text. And so for ours, we're going to be what is the most frequently okay. So what is a t-test? All right, so those are our 3 answer choices. Now I did those all by hand as you saw, but there's a much simpler way to do it. You can just hit edit multiple, and that brings up, that'll bring up your 3 options all in one place. So if you have all your answer options listed in a Word document, you can just copy and paste it straight from there to here. So you won't have to type it in individually like I just did. So for example, this one, if you go to edit multiple, it shows up with the default choices. So, all right. So like I mentioned, this is a block, and the block is the outline of your survey, and it comes up as a new page when you administer your survey to participants. If you click the ellipses on the upper right-hand side of the block, you'll get numerous options on what you can do. Yeah, as you can see, you can add a block below. So another block just showed up below it. You can copy the block, you can delete the block, etc. One of my favorite things to do is to preview the block, and we will utilize that function in a few minutes. Okay, so we already talked about questions a little bit, but the default question, when you add a new question, as you can see, it's multiple choice. So like I said, I like to label them with the survey names. All right. So for this, okay, in order to actually edit the questions over here, you need to actually click on the question itself. If you're clicked on the block, it will show you the block. It won't show you the question. So just make sure you're clicked on what you're trying to actually edit. For the format, you can list the answers as a drop-down menu, which you can see changing on the right-hand side. You can list it as a select box. The most common format is a list, and I think that's the easiest way for participants to answer the questions because that's what they're used to using. You can also choose how to align it. You can do vertical, horizontal, or a column. I use vertical unless it's a Likert type scale or something like that, which makes more sense to use horizontal alignment. Sorry, vertical. So if you need more more answer options, you go to the left-hand side and you add where it says number of choices. So for that particular one, we only need 3. Okay. All right. So you can also add requirements to the question, which forces the participant to respond, or it just requests a response. So before they get to move on to the next page, it'll either signal to them, hey, can you please answer this question? Or it won't let them move on to the next page until they actually answer the question. So for example, that would be really useful if you're doing an informed consent, because people need to consent to the research before they participate. So that would be one prime example of a question you should force the response. So as I mentioned, we're going to preview this block. Slowly. When you preview the block, you can see how it looks on the computer and how it looks on the phone, which is really important because some people choose to take the surveys on the phone. So I'm just going to answer the second question, which I haven't filled in answers for, but we'll get there in a minute. And I'm going to click go ahead. But if you recall, we put a requirement on this one where they have to answer. So it won't let you move on until you answer. And now we can move on. Okay. So you have to click on the question. The question type, you can edit it once you already have it, or when you add a new question, you can choose what you want to do. So there are numerous options. For text entry, participants will type their response. So if you're doing something such as how old are you, when it comes to cleaning data later, you don't want to have to, not that they're going to be 0 years old. You don't want to, you don't want to have to go through and type the age. So if they write 19 in letters, you don't want to have to go through and clean your data by actually writing their age. So if you go to add validation, and you choose content type, number, minimum number 18, because that's going to be the minimum age of your participants, maximum 100. And then no decimals. Okay, so then when we go to preview our block, we're going to answer this question again, and we're going to say 12. But it won't let you move on because you're supposed to enter a number between 18 and 100. So I'm going to answer 12 again. It doesn't let me do it because we chose a value greater than or equal to 18. So then we're going to do 18. So I highly recommend doing that for any questions that have a number answer. The other option would be to use a slider. And we're only going to have one statement. Because then again, you won't have to clean the data for this question. It gives you the option. If you scroll down, you can make your minimum 18 and your maximum 100. You can make more grid lines to make it easier for them to find their age. But as you can see on the right-hand side, it'll show up with the exact number. So they don't have to predict where their age falls. Okay, so another thing you can use is text or graphic, which gives you the option to type something in, and it does not give them any option to respond. So for these, you can use it for instructions, or if you're including a picture, that sort of thing. So that's what that would be used for. Another option that I've never actually used, but some people might want it, is the CAPTCHA verification. If you click on that, they'll have to click "I'm not a robot" in order to move on. What else? Then we have a matrix table, which are very useful for Likert type scales. So for the number of scale points, you might know that Likert type or Likert scales are 7. So you can write, neutral, none, or all of it, or whatever you want your scale to be. And then you write your statements down here so they can click as it fits to whatever they're doing, the participants, I mean. And then the last thing I want to show you on this one is timing. You can make it so individuals are either forced to advance after a certain number of seconds. And you can show them the timer for how much time they have left. And then you can also delay showing the submit button to make sure they spend a certain amount of time on each page. And they won't be allowed to move forward until they've spent that time. All right, so let's make this a multiple choice again. So as you may have seen, when I clicked on the question, these options popped up. If you go to Rich Content Editor, it lets you change the size of the font, the type of the font. You can use this for bullet points. You can use this to insert your photo. There are a lot of uses for it. So let's change the font to Comic Sans, and then let's change that to size 16. And then you just click out of it. And you can double check when you preview your block that the two fonts are different. So you can see that this font is different than this one, and it's bigger because that's what we changed to. I would recommend not making fonts different from each other. I would keep them all the same if possible, because people tend to get very distracted if they have a lot of different types of things to look at. So keeping it as the same style is the best option. Okay, so there are numerous important features. One of them is display logic. So display logic lets you choose when you want a question shown. So if you click it, you can say display this question only if the following condition is met. So it'll relate back to potentially a previous question or embedded data, such as the user ID, etc. So the question we're going to use is what is the most frequently asked question in the SAM lab? And only people who answer what is ANOVA will get to move on to this question. So let's preview it quickly so that you can see what I'm talking about. So if you say what is ANOVA, then it'll show you the next question. Okay, so we're going to delete this. And now we're going to choose skip logic. So all right, sorry about that. So if we go to skip logic, we can choose which answer we want them to select on the question we are currently on. And they have to either move to the end of the block or the end of the survey. So if you're asking them a question about their relationship with their children, but they don't have children, you don't want them to answer those questions, right? So the question would be, do you have children? Yes or no. And if no is selected, you skip to the end of the block. Choice randomization allows you to randomize the answer choices within or between participants, so they're not always viewing the answer in the same order. This would not be used for a Likert type scale because that would just confuse people. Likert type scales need to stay on the same, like 0 to 7. You don't, or 1 to 7. You don't want it to be 1, 4, 3, 5, etc. You want it to be in order, or it would definitely confuse people. Recode values is one of my favorite tools to use. So for example, I like to have no, and then I'm going to add an answer choice and then put yes. So I want to recode these because it automatically comes up as 1 and 2. So whenever you download your data, it's going to be coded as 1 for no and 2 for yes. I personally like having no as 0 because it makes sense to me, and yes as 1. So you make sure to recode your values in that question, and when you download it, it'll already be coded for you. You don't have to go through and change the 1 to a 0 in your data set, which again, very useful when it comes to cleaning data. Okay, moving on. So another important feature that we can use is over here on the left-hand side. It's called Survey Flow. If you click it, it takes you to this page, which is, it shows you your blocks, and it allows you to change the order of the blocks or create different conditions. So you can use add below, and you can add embedded data, where you can add different data from the survey already, the contact ID, the email, etc. Existing embedded data, which could be like their ID number, but we don't have that in our survey because we didn't put it in there. So that can be very useful. You can add, let's delete this. You can add branches, which allow you to group participants into different conditions depending on what they're assigned to. So you add a condition. So for example, if they answer one question if they answer what is a t-test for the SAM 1, they might be directed to one set of questions. And then if they answer the same question, but somebody else answers what is a NOVA, they might move to a different branch. So in order to move the blocks, you just drag them around. So if you want them back out on the main, where they're like a main block, you just keep them all on the left. If you want it as a block under a different block, like within a different block or a branch, you can move it to these arrows that are on the right, but we're just going to move it back to where it was. The randomizer is really cool. Add below, randomizer. The cool thing about the randomizer is it allows you to randomize the order that the blocks show up. So for example, if you have a bunch of different measures within your survey, you don't want them to show up in the same order, because that creates a bias where people might answer questions a certain way based on the previous questions. So to help balance that out, you give participants the survey in different orders, but the Qualtrics will do that for you, so you don't have to do that. In order to save this, you need to hit apply, which we're not going to. We're going to just revert it back to what it was. The survey saves itself in live time, but this part doesn't. The survey flow, you need to actually hit apply or it won't save anything. But if you try to leave the page without saving it, this message will pop up to make sure you actually want to not save the changes. So you can hit don't save changes if you're not wanting to. Okay, next we're going to talk about collaboration. Again, with these three, oh, no, sorry. If you go to, sorry, that was wrong. Sorry about that. Let's try to get back to where we were. Okay. If you go to this tools button right here, there's a little drop down arrow. There's a button that says collaborate. And you can use this to share your survey with, you know, your collaborators, whoever you're working on the project with. So you would type in their Qualtrics username up here and you would hit add. And then it would send them a notification and they can accept the ad. From there, they can do numerous different things where you can select the option to let them edit. You can let them view reports. You can let them activate or deactivate the survey. You can let them copy the survey and you can let them distribute the survey. Each one of these sections will have a little checkbox. And if you do not want them to do it, you just deselect that checkbox. So for example, maybe you only want them to view the reports and not be able to edit. So this is the only box you're going to have clicked. Okay, we're not going to actually save that because we didn't do anything. Another way to get to that is if you're in your projects list. Projects, so it's right here. On the right-hand side, there's the ellipses, and you just click it and you click collaborate, and it'll take you to the same box that we just saw. So there's a lot of different ways to get to the same place when you're using Qualtrics. Sometimes you just have to kind of play around to find out exactly where to go or find out what's easier for you. Sometimes collaborating through the first method doesn't work. So you have to use this method or vice versa, just for whatever reason, Qualtrics decides not to work that way one day. So you have numerous different options on how you can do something. All right, so let's go back to our survey. So if we want to distribute this to our participants, you go to the row right here and you click distributions. Sorry, I'm not sure why everything is so slow today. All right, well, while that's loading, I'll go over some tips that we can use just so you guys aren't just watching this circle. So as I mentioned, the survey will auto-save and update in real time, except for under the survey flow. Additionally, you're able to save your blocks and your questions for future use in your library. I highly recommend that if you're using different measures. So if you're using an existing measure and you're going to use it multiple times, then it really makes sense to save it into your questions or as a block so that you don't have to keep retyping those questions and answer choices every single time. As I mentioned previously, you should always name your blocks the name of the measure that you're using to make it easy. And you should always name your questions. This will make it much easier to clean your data. And then lastly, either use the slider, there we go. Either use the slider or the specific type of response, so like number, for any responses that you want them to type in by hand or like any number responses. Make sure that it makes it as easy as possible to clean your data later. It'll be really frustrating later on if you do not do that. All right, so back to where we were talking about distributions. To distribute the survey, you click on that button up here, distributions. And then usually we use this one, get a single reusable link. And that will bring you to this page, and you can just copy the survey link. Now, the point of this, well, you can either email this out to people or share it other ways, but right now we're going to discuss how to use Sona, which, as I mentioned, is just a research participation system that we have access to through ASU. This is used for to get our surveys out to undergrads so that we can collect data from our other students. So log in with your ASU Write ID. Don't use this, it doesn't usually work. So use this. Okay, and you will be logging in as a researcher, so you click researcher. Now, I'm going to go to a study that I already have existing, but if you have any questions on how to actually use Sona, you can reach out to the Sona coordinator, which is Anuja Miriam Thomas right now, at aswestsonahhelp@gmail.com, or you could always schedule an appointment with the SAM Lab. Okay, so we're going to go view my studies that already exist. Click on this one. So we are going to, where we paste the link will be over here under direct study link, but we have to get into change study information. So our link, oops. All right, so it goes to the study URL and you paste what we just did. And then you need to add this part down here, the question ID, etc., for it to work properly. Okay. Otherwise it won't work properly. So make sure to copy and paste that. I'm not going to save my changes because I don't want that for this study. Okay, so then once you do that, you go back into Qualtrics and you go back into your survey. There are a couple ways to do this part. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different ways to do different things here. This block is pointless, so we can delete it. So at the bottom of your survey, you'll see this end of survey and we thank you for your time, etc. That's just the default message. So if you click on that, as you can see on the left-hand side, it says it's the default message. So what we want to do is we want to redirect to a URL. And the URL we want to redirect to is the one that shows up on the left-hand side of your study, where it says Qualtrics redirect to URL. You click on that, you copy it, and then you paste it into Qualtrics. And then it'll show up down here that respondents will be redirected to that website. So it'll redirect them to Sona when they're done. We can also use Prolific or MTurk to administer surveys, but that is something that you need to set up an appointment with the SAM Lab in order to discuss. But those are two other survey platforms. Okay, so we're going to get out of here. I'm going to go to a different project and you'll see why in a minute. Let's see if this one lets me do it. Okay. So in order to get the data, the information from your study, which is, the main point of this, you'll click on that data and analysis button. This one actually normally takes quite a while to load. So it's not just the fact that my computer is being slow today. That was actually really fast compared to how it normally is. So this is how you view your data. There are ways to change the order of the questions. Oftentimes you have attention checks. So you would click this add button and go down to whatever your attention check is. And you can list attention check 1, 2, 3 in that order. And then you can quickly scroll down and see which participants actually pass the attention check. So who's actually going to get credit, or which surveys you want to, or which participants you want to throw out their data, and that sort of thing. Because you don't want people who missed all the attention checks, for example, because they weren't actually paying attention. So to export data tables, you're going to hit export and import, and then you're going to hit export data. Now, I personally use SPSS for my analyses. So that is how I download my data. I hit download all fields, which is the default option, and then you just click this download button. But again, there are a lot of other options. You can use CSV, TSV, etc., depending on how you want to run your analyses. To me, it makes the most sense to choose the file that you're actually going to be using that that system. So if you're going to be using a spreadsheet in Excel, download as an Excel file. SPSS, download as SPSS. It just makes your life easier. It makes it less likely to make mistakes while you're converting the file into something else. So I would just recommend making your life much easier. Okay, so that is pretty much all I have. Let me stop sharing. Where is Zoom? Alrighty, and I would like to open this up for questions at this time. if anyone has any questions. Alrighty, if nobody has, oh.
Thank you so much. It was really helpful, though I had like difficulty at the beginning joining in, but yeah. And it was very interesting, but I guess it's more practical, and I need to practice to come up with my questions, because theoretically it is so complicated. And once you started using it, then, I found the features and the context very practical, and it helps you to go through. But sometimes I may face with difficulties.
Yeah, so the best way to get to know this platform is just to use it.
Yeah.
This is being recorded, so I think it'll be uploaded to the SAMLab website. So if you want to go back and watch the beginning or that you missed, I'm not sure also if you saw that I sent out the PowerPoint in the email that I sent you with the link to the Zoom.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so that pretty much just was exactly what I was talking about in the same order. So if for whatever reason you decide you want to watch this again, you can have your PowerPoint slides next, and it just might make it easier. Or if you just need to remember something I said, you can go into the slides and it should be there. You can also, of course, make an appointment with us by emailing samlabasu@gmail.com.
Sure.
So yeah. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think it makes research life much easier.
Good. I'm glad. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Have a great day. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for watching this webinar. I hope you found it very helpful. Again, just like I told that student, if you have any questions, feel free to email us or schedule an appointment, and we will be more than happy to help. Thanks.